seats and, of course, continue to participate with some of your peers. I do want you to understand that we have shifted gears this time and moving into the next theme for the conference. This time around, looking at future-proofing development. And I guess it speaks to the concepts and the conversations that we've been underlying throughout the course of the conference, right? Rethinking, reimagining, creating this future that we actually want to experience in South Africa when it comes to the world and the impact of CSI and the opportunities that are presented to us. Now, we again are trying to catch up on time, so please do warmly encourage my next speaker who's joining us on stage. There will be an opportunity for you once more to ask your questions, probe his mind, and of course share some of your themes and suggestions. So we invite you to do that using the online platform, and again for those of you who are present in the room to raise your hands if you might have questions during the Q&A session. But for the moment, please allow me to warmly welcome, naturally with a level 3 applause, which will be expected in a short while, the CEO of the Development Impact Fund and the Justice Fund. Mr. Lorenzo Davids is the CEO of the Development Impact Fund, and prior to that, he spent 8 years serving as CEO of Community Chest South Africa, where he directed impact funding to more than 300 non-profit organizations a year. Ladies and gentlemen, please warmly welcome on stage to help us understand how best to reconnect with our communities, Mr. Lorenzo Davids.
Appreciate it, thank you. Good afternoon, my name is Lorenzo and I'm going to talk to you about how do we reconnect with communities, how do we future-proof development. It's a field that I enjoy enormously and a space that I think we've made far too complicated for ourselves. And I hope that I'm going to show you how we do that journey from this space to the spaces we all occupy. I want to frame my presence here in a way that makes you understand this, that I'm a public transport user. I use buses, trains, and taxis to get around. I insist on that as a framing of my own narrative for what we do in terms of justice in this country. And a lot of my advocacy work is about justice in the public transport space. And so on any given day, you'll find me going to a meeting with a train or a bus or a minibus taxi. Or coming, I tweeted when I left Cape Town, I'm taking public transport to come to Cape Town because, quite frankly, an airline is a bit of public transport, but not as grueling as a minibus taxi is going to a business meeting or to go see a funder. And so what I want to do quickly is to talk with you about future-proofing development and reconnecting with our communities. I think there's a need for me to talk about sense-making leadership within the non-profit sector. I think so much of it is based on a sort of energy that effuses all over the place, and the clear, directed sense-making leadership is often absent, and I'm going to go through this very quickly. I drive from my home in the southern suburbs, that space over there, once a week, and I get in my car and go all across what I believe is part of the country to go and talk to people. And so a lot of my development work, the work I do in the Justice Fund, is about conversations with ordinary South Africans to find out what's the soul of this country. Are NGOs doing the right thing for you? Have you been involved in this space? How have you directed the work of NGOs? How have you influenced what this? And I talked to urban farmers in Mossel Bay, for example. I stopped there and had an interview with a bunch of urban farmers. I spoke to urban farmers last week in Montague. I go and visit farms and homesteads and communities that live all along the highways and byways of our country. And I have no map, I have no agenda, I have no route planned. I get in my car and I drive and I stop. And wherever I meet along the road, I knock on the front door, I pick up hitchhikers, I begin to have conversations with ordinary South Africans about, is this working for you? And the resounding response I get is, no, it's not working for me. In this room, we say it's working. The urban farmer who lives here in Mossel Bay, in this space, says it's not working. Or elsewhere. And this arrogant ray of sunshine that often floods my soul as I do these essentially good things about what I've done for them is the reason why I believe, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a permanent state of poverty. Because so much of our work is done on the fact that we feel good about it. And that's a drug. That's the nonsense of the NGO space. that the urban farmers of Mossel Bay or the people of Kwanagwaba in Mossel Bay says to me it's not working. I walk down the street to go talk to entrepreneurs sitting along the side of the road, hairdressers, fruit and vegetable sellers, cell phone sellers, purveyors of all kinds of goods. And I hear people who are desperate for an answer. People who want to connect with you and me, not the program, not the project, not the name of the NGO. They want someone to come into Princess's hair salon and sit there and say, okay, so how does this work, Princess? Tell me the story. On my train journeys, I've always used public transport, and my train journeys, I tweeted about, what the state of the trains are and how much I love it or hate it on certain days, or from taxi cabs. And it sort of grew a whole movement, which has had people like the BBC and ENCA and others accompany me, and Financial Mail accompany me on train journeys wherever I go to say, tell the story, tell us the story of what's going on. And at the heart of that is this critical thing. It's the fact that we've lost the art of conversation. All we have is a program we are giving people, a project we involve them with, a concept we want to get their membership to, but the true art of dialogue is lost. I'm a father of 2 children. When my daughter started university, I said to her, you're going to use public transport to get to university. And she went like, Dad. I said, yeah, get on a train, bus and taxi and get yourself to university, because all South Africans do that, don't they? I want to give you this
They say the
conversation.
eyes are the windows to the soul. But what if those windows are broken and you can no longer see as clearly what the soul is portraying? You can't find the depth of that soul. What if we are looking at this country through broken eyes, eyes that are not seeing really what there is to see? I think that South Africa is struggling with a crisis to find that soul. What is our national soul? Is it resilience? Is it compassion? Is it love? Is it rugby? Is it the craziness of living in this country? How do we begin to pick up that story again that helps people to understand that we are a great land, that we are a positive country, that we are not this mean, angry, volatile, broken society that everybody portrays us as. South Africa is a house, and sometimes its windows are broken. Who's going to come and fix that? Who is brave enough to go through the land and tell stories of windows that are being fixed, and signposts that are pointing in the right direction, and narratives that are bold and brave, and of a national prosperity beyond this house, of lands and fields that grow grapes and corn and wheat, and that becomes a place of prosperity for all of us, for everyone who lives in this country. Because that's what we want. We want to be a kind of people that live with that bravery, that live with that sense of, this is our land. It's a beautiful land. And we want to tell stories of how successful we've been at managing this broken soul of this country, and how we've built up a prosperity for everyone, and a sense of national pride that makes us feel safe, glad, and makes our children want to grow old here with us. That's the country whose soul I'm seeking.
That's the country I want to talk about, and the people who helped build that country. That's the country I want to help you see today on this journey with me. Every photograph you're going to see today is a photograph that I've taken personally, barring one picture in this presentation. Frantz Fanon, the psychotherapist from Martinique who lived in Algiers, said these amazing words. He said, each generation must discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it in relative opacity. In the book we in the NGO sector read so well, The Wretched of the Earth. What's the problem with our mission? What's the problem with what Fanon said, that we must discover this mission in a state of relative opacity? The problem with the mission is that we fail at opacity, is that we keep inserting ourselves into the narratives. We don't allow the narrative to develop and grow beyond us, better than us, past us, post us, without us. We are not facilitating a narrative, we want to be part of the story. And I find increasingly that we need to step back, and then we fail at clarity. We fail at being absolutely clear as to where we need to be going. I think, and I wrote this yesterday as I sat here, I thought, we have created deeper and deeper labyrinths to barrier access for others by creating new rhetoric, phrases, levels, acronyms, etc., which makes the access routes impossible to navigate instead of disrupting these access barriers, all under the constant marketing disguise of ease of access. I wanted to bring the farmers of Kwanakwaba here, or the people from Prince Albert, or the woman I met in Smithsville in Barrydale, into this room and listen to us yesterday and see what sense-making leadership sounds like to them. I'm going to show a picture of 3 presidents. Anybody want to guess which 3 presidents I'm going to show you? Come on, take a guess. Take a wild guess. Mandela, Zuma, Thabo Mbeki. Okay, let's go with those 3. I'm going to show you the picture of 3 presidents. Here they are. There are 3 future presidents. The picture of 3 presidents, the gap between this statement and that picture is the true work of development. In March 2020, the president said we are undergoing this great reset. I have such a problem that that word has disappeared from our narrative. Anybody still talk about reset? It's gone, it's missing, it's sort of evaporated. The kind of going back to normal is now the narrative. And you must understand that people talk about a new normal. My problem is that for most of the poor I work with and most of the poor I visit across the country, the homes I sit in and eat meals in, and in the homes in which I sleep at night on my road trips, it's a far worse of old normal. There is no new normal. And in development, it's important that we don't get drawn into these rephrasing of the world that other people live in. We told them it will be a reset. On the 27th of April, 2020, the President's Freedom Day speech. It was a powerful speech he gave that day. And he gave 3 things that he said will change in this country. Firstly, he said, we should develop a new consciousness. Then he said we should develop a new economy. And thirdly, he said there should be a new society. I fear that that's not happening. I fear that we are all rushing towards this new state of being where we will eventually just park every new idea and gravitate around, hey guys, what's working for us? And nobody's sitting there and saying, I insist on a reset. I insist on a new consciousness. I insist on a new economy. I insist on a new society. And I'm going to plant myself here and make it work. When I started tweeting about my train journeys, I was interviewed by the BBC, and I said to the BBC that I'm going to stand on every broken station in this country, no matter if it's a pile of bricks with no trains and no ticket office and nothing else and no signal, and I'm going to stand there and say to the Minister of Transport, sir, I demand a train here. From commenting on my tweets, he eventually blocked me. Because I'm not willing to sell the narrative. Because we promised South Africa's people a reset. We promised ourselves a new economy, a new consciousness, and a new society. The story of Simpiwe, and I'm running out of time, so let me go. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I had a kind of deal with my kids when they were starting school. My daughter went to school in the year 2000, and I made her a promise, and when my son went to school later, 2006, I made him the same promise. I said, kids, you'll never be late for school. So I made them a promise they'll never be late for school. So, over 12 years of school and 4 years of university, and Tim just graduated now, they were never late for school. They were never late for school. That's a level 5 applause. Nick? My kids were never late for school. Because why? Well, I gave them my word. 7 o'clock one morning, we live 15 minutes from school, but I normally leave for school at about 7:15. So 7 o'clock that morning, there's a knock on my door. I open the door, and there's this guy. So nobody knocks at my door at 7 o'clock in the morning unless it's sort of an emergency. So I open the door, expecting sort of, what's going on. And there's a guy standing in front of my house, front door, and he says, "Good morning, my name's Simpiwe." I said, "Yeah, what can I do for you?" He says, "Can I use your phone?" I said, "What? It's 7 o'clock in the morning." Now, in colored homes like my house, the phone is normally at the front, right by the front door on a doily. I mean, the people here will know. Because your mother-in-law knitted a doily for the phone at the front door. So I couldn't say to him, "I don't have a phone." So I said to him, "Okay, come inside quickly, use my phone." So I go back into the house, and we have sort of an open plan house. Get the kids and get the bags and everything because I don't want to be late for school. I got 10 minutes to go. So in the moment that I'm busy there, I forget Simpiwe is in the house. It never happened, so I forget he's there. And so I get the kids, the bags and the lunches, and I want to go to the car, and I walk into the lounge, and what happened next? Tell me the story. Tell me the story quickly. Just shout it out. He's still on the phone? Hijacked? Yeah, okay, let me finish the story. All of you, really, you were the only honest guy. The rest of them thought I was being hijacked, robbed, and held at gunpoint. I wasn't. Came into the lounge, and there's some people sitting, took the phone off the doily. I didn't tell my mother-in-law that, but he put it on the floor, didn't tell my mother-in-law that either, and he's dialing for numbers. I'm saying, "What are you doing?" Lots of paper around him, all bits of paper. I said to him, "Simpiwe, what are you doing?" He says, "Hey, I'm dialing for jobs, man." I'm saying, "What?" He says, "I'm phoning for jobs." Anyway, I said to him, "Simpiwe, you got to get this together. I got to go." Pack up all his stuff, out of the house, and he's off. Next morning, 7 o'clock. "Hello, my name's Simpiwe. Can I use your phone?" Out of that knock, 7 o'clock in the morning, "Hello, my name's Simpiwe," grew a partnership between Simpiwe and myself. And I became his office. And he worked from my house. And he later employed me because he said, "Hey, you call these people and I'll call these people." So before I left home at 7:15, I had to make 10 calls and log it and say to him, "Okay, I did my job." But the problem is that we've lost something in this country. Steve Biko says in "I Like What I Like," and every development person in this country should read "I Like What I Like." Do you know it's the most stolen book at Exclusive? It is. Go ask any Exclusive shop assistant. What is the 2 most stolen books at Exclusive? It's the Bible, for some reason. And it's "I Write What I Like" from Steve Biko. Every development person should read this. And Steve, in a speech he gave at the University of Cape Town, or in Cape Town in 1972, 78, 72, he gave this speech. He says, "In time," isn't that a beautiful picture I took? In time, it's the same Pyrenees view. "In time, we shall be in a position to bestow on South Africa the greatest possible gift, a more human face." That is such a powerful motivation, that we are building, developing the greatest possible gift we can give to this country, which is a more human face. Not this angry, vile, vicious society we live in. Look at that headline. Look at that headline. Now, look at the picture above the headline. Do you see the gap? Do you see the gap? How many of those children are going to be in that number 31 in 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years from now? 31 killed in 31 days. So I want to share with you 15 ideas to future-proof development, and I'm going to do this very fast. 1, be willing to stand at the point of your greatest success and ask yourself, what must we do differently? Success seduces. It corrupts us. Success makes us lazy, lethargic. At the point of our greatest success, we should ask ourselves, hold on team, this is great, but this is not good enough. What must we change? Ask that when you are successful, not when you are failing. Ask the question of the great changes you need to make in your organization when you are most successful. Pause and say, everybody, strat time, get together here. They'll say to you, hey, what's wrong? Are we doing so well? No, we now need to shift gears to change. That's what every great organization does. That's the great leadership mindset, is that we begin to change when we are doing well, not when we are doing bad. This guy was just amazing. Uniondale. I stayed in his guest house one night. He was a former mayor there, so he invited me to come and stay with him. And the morning I left, I asked him how to get from Uniondale to another spot. And what he did was, he typically bent down in the ground and drew me the map. Wasn't that amazing? People don't do that anymore. He wants to point you to a link or a GPS. He bent down in the sand and drew the map as to how I need to get there. Your greatest impact is related to your ability to solve complex problems. What are the big issues you are solving? I know you're feeding kids, but what's the big issue you are feeding? I know you're dealing with literacy, but what's the big issue you are solving? You've got to identify the big issue. You've got to make sense of the bigger issue. We are all selling our feeding programs, our literacy programs, our ECD programs, our homeless programs to funders. You have to connect that issue to the big national debate. And if you can't do that link, you're going to miss the funder. There's going to be a break in the sense-making leadership. So know the data of the big issues, because your issue must connect to that. And that's how you move forward. When you look at those numbers, what are those? Quickly. I'm almost out of time. What is that? Your greatest impact is related to your ability to solve complex problems. Okay, let me go. Creche, school, and tertiary, 22 years. That life cycle there is where everything else emanates from. Activist in energy, activist in climate change, activist in housing, activist in law, in justice, in constitutional development, in politics. Everything depends on what happens in that cycle right there. Everything in this country. Those 22 years are the most critical 22 years of investment. Most of the development does impact that. So here's the problem. Most of us have no idea what that cost. We're selling programs that are way under cost. And we're telling funders we can get away with it. And what we do is we are placing individuals who have benefited from NGO programs, but they've only had this much standing on street corners. Most of the people I engage with, I talk to them in Willamore and Uniondale. In Willamore, I met a young couple who were in an ECD program when they were growing up. I asked them, what kind of ECD experience did you have? And they grew up with it. But now they farm laborers out on the streets, not doing anything, work seasonally. But they've benefited from an NGO. And here's the problem. To really get a kid through creche is going to cost us 108,000 Rand at a price of about 1,500 Rand per child. If we're really going to help people in school at a cost of about 1,000 Rand per month per child to get them through school over 12 years, that's what it's going to cost. Tertiary, at a pop of about 40,000 Rand a degree, that's what it's going to cost. So to really get success with any child in this country, if that child does not have the kind of infrastructural support of parents and an economic system, it's going to cost around 452,000 Rand. That's what you've got to tell your donor. Every child I'm helping, I'm going to help from beginning till the end. And that's what it's going to cost, 452,000 Rand. To get any child from birth all the way through to a tertiary degree so that that child can add value to the economy. South Africa is littered with billions of philanthropic rands that did not reach the finish line. Look at that again. South Africa is littered with billions of philanthropic rands that never reached the finish line. And I hope we stop today. To move from poverty reduction and poverty eradication and poverty elimination discourses, to move away from that. What we need to be talking about is wealth creation for poor people. I've often asked DSD and the work I've done in consulting for agriculture and elsewhere, I said, show me your poverty eliminated person. Show me your poverty eradicated person. Oh, we've gone from, is the dialogue now that we've gone from $2 a day to $4 a day or $5 a day? Is that the deal? We're just happy to move people from the lower bound poverty level to the upper bound poverty level, and we kind of go, oh, what a wonderful move. Nobody's having a discourse with poor people about wealth creation. Because quite frankly, it scares the hell out of us. And I'm not talking about Mercedes-Benz in the driveway and a house in Constantia and, bishops for the education. I'm talking about wealth creation that creates the ability with poor people to make their own decisions about what meal they will eat, what school their kids will go to, what healthcare they will get, etc., etc., etc. The discourses must be about the positive things we wish to achieve. And move away from this eradicating poverty. Into what? So if you're eradicating poverty, let's say it's into wealth creation, right? We are so scared to say that. Because we have no strategy to create wealth for poor people. Nothing at all. And that's a condemnation on us. Because we should be better at this. If we cannot picture our poverty, we cannot plan our prosperity. Lee Davids, who did an article, I think this was in 2017, if I recall, did an article where they identified and said, as a transgender sex worker, this quote just jumped out at me. In the article, they say, when they wake up each morning after a night of selling their bodies on the streets, they wake up, this thought resonates, and it's in the article, it says, for whom will I perform my poverty today? That's why I believe we need to change the discourse. To move from interventions to solutions, and that says itself. We have to begin to get away from kind of piecemeal interventions to saying, guys, we have a solution. We have something that will fix this. And that's a far longer discussion, which I don't have time to go into. When I'm with donors, you never ask for money. Talk about your commitment to navigating complex outcomes which will have high economic and social impact. The donor will ask you how much you need. I'm inviting you to not ask donors for money. I hope that we respect the donors enough in this room that you don't pitch to them, that you don't give them your business cards, that you don't flag them down or track them down at all. Leave them alone. Impress them with your intelligence. Impress them with your ability to talk about complex issues and the solutions you've designed without asking for a cent. I will tell you that donor will call you up. Turn the tables around. There's nothing as powerful as a story that is believable. And that's a story that attracts the power of others to invest in that story. We keep peddling ourselves to donors and making sure they get our proposal and phoning them. Did you read my proposal? And I've dealt with that for the last 8 years at Community Chess, where we got thousands of proposals and it was exhausting. Corey Julius, who used to head up CSI at PenBev Coca-Cola, told me, I went to his office in 1994 when I first began to raise money. Corey said to me, come into my office, look at these proposals. And there were thousands of proposals in his office. He says, Lorenzo, I don't have time to read this. The 3 questions that donors think about when they engage you. There are 3 questions that you must become comfortable with. What do you know? Why does it matter? And what are you solving? Every donor, when they look at you, engage with you, read your proposal, they look at what do you know, why does this matter, and what are you solving? You want to know why your proposal doesn't leave first base? It's because you're not answering those questions. When I first came into development, I was appalled at how little people read. They don't read. They don't know development trends. They don't become students of the field that they are in. And yet they want to sell our literacy program. But they got no data on it. Their own personal understanding of it is so bad. I picked up this book. It was in an airport. It's called The Book Is Matter by Peter Sheehan and Julie Williamson. And that they deal with those 3 questions in the book. from a airport lounge. But it's been my mantra for the last 8 years of talking about funding and fundraising and the work that I do. Because I do raise a lot of money. Let's be honest with you. I'm in the fundraising space. But I want to do it in a way that speaks to intelligence and not begging. And they ask this question for 3 reasons. Because we've confused fixing things with solving things, because we've confused altruism with intelligence, and because most of us have never solved anything. This is a picture from Klaarstrom. You've got to go visit Klaarstrom sometime. It's a beautiful little town, about 40 kilometers from Oudtshoorn. Innovation and intelligence and integrity are industry essentials and must outstrip compassion. Some of you are going to be uncomfortable with that. But your bleeding heart is not going to convince me to invest money in you. Let me just put that out there. Your appeals and letters and emails and calls are not going to convince any donor to give you money. There is a donor who responds to that, and then you need to know this. There is what we call in the industry go away money. There is. You beg, you call, you mail, and eventually the donor says, okay, we'll give you 1,000 rand. The 1,000 rand is go away money. So that you can stop that erratic behavior. And now you have that donor on your books as a donor. No, they are not a donor. They are not your donor. Built into the system must be innovation and intelligence and integrity. That shows that you're a good student of what you are addressing. Helping people out of poverty is not a charity issue, and neither is it a job for amateurs. It requires innovation, intelligence, and collaboration. I wonder sometimes if we will do for ourselves what we do for poor people. I had heart surgery a few years ago with an aortic heart valve that was problematic, so I had to have it replaced. And obviously I went to go look for the best surgeon there was, right? Imagine I went to my day hospital and said, hey guys, I don't know if you have time to squeeze in a heart surgery this morning. I'd like you to, fix this thing. Right? No, I wanted the best. Why should poor people accept us when we are not the best? Why should they even open their communities to us when we are not the best? My time is running out, so I have to go on. Anyway, when you're in the NGO space, there are 5 indicators you must constantly have data on and watch. Which way is the poverty index moving? Which way is the education index moving? Which way is the employment index moving? Which way is the health index moving? And which way is the food security index moving? All of that relates to the crime and safety index. But you've got to fix these 5 things. So when you do your work, no matter what it is, food, literacy, youth development, aged care, watch these 5 indicators in your community. Have the data that in my community, this is what these 5 indicators show. When your donor talks to you, that's part of your intelligence. This is in Rietbron. I was invited for supper, and it was raining, and they made roosterkoek on the floor of the house lounge. I personally place no value anymore on project reports and program reports. I really don't. They are brag sheets of how great we've been. What I really look for is what I call geographic or ecological reports. Show me that the community is better off. Show me that these indicators have shifted as a result of you being there. I don't want to know how good your program is, or how great your NGO has done, or how many kids you've put through the program. I want to know this. That is the community better off as a consequence of your presence there? Are there impacts that now ripple throughout other sectors, education, health, safety, food, youth development? As a consequence of one program of yours, there are ripples throughout the community that you can now begin to track and plot. As a consequence of a donor partnering with you to build something special, now something great has come out of that. That's the kind of development that's worth supporting. You do report on donor funds, and you have to submit a donor impact report on how the funds have been utilized. But the real data I'm after is show me that the community is better off as a consequence of you being there. Show me that these indicators have changed. Now, they won't change in year 1, But there should be a change in about year 5. We should begin to see data changes because of the consequence of you being there. And what happens in this country is we just ignore all of that. 250,000 NGOs later today registered with DSD, and it just keeps on growing and growing and growing. From 24,000 in 1994, it just grows and grows and grows and grows. We owe the poor a better message. We owe poor people a better deal. It's 2022. Every serious donor will look for the innovative, disruptive, and knowledge aspects of your proposal. Make sure you point it out to them. As I said, when I got on the trains, this was my journey. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see all my train stories on it. Are your teams, for example, looking at the most difficult challenges in your context, the most pressing challenges donors, communities, and governments are facing, and now they're focusing on solving them? So you go to your DSD office, go to your housing office, go to the Premier's office and say, sir, what are the 10 most important things for the province? Tell me what they are. Choose one of them and say, okay, our NGO will help in that space. We'll try and fix something. Give us specific items to fix. That's the deal. Don't pitch up and say, oh, but we are expanding and we'd like to be in your community as well. Connect to the issues that are there already. Donors and community either enjoy you or endure you. It all happens within the first 5 minutes of when you open your mouth. Donors and the community either enjoy you or endure you. And it happens when you start talking. I have a quick rule that I want to share with you, which I've used in fundraising ever. I raised my first money from Christo Visa, by the way, in 1982. Christo Visa was my first donor ever. He was still CEO of Pepco in Tiger Valley then. I went into his office and asked him for money. That was 1982. I was raising funds for a student conference that we were doing. It's an interesting story. I can tell you that story sometime. But I've learned the rule, and I had a great mentor in the name of Patrick Mullen, who was managing partner of Seifert, Godwin, Fullermoor, and now Cliff Decker, who sort of took me through the fundraising mill in my formative years. I spent no more than 10 minutes with any donor. When I go see a donor, it's for 10 minutes. I call them up and say, can I have a 10-minute meeting? I take no presentations with me. Because my first duty and task is to share with them my intelligence. The asking, the presentations is a byproduct. It comes much later. Most NGOs chase one meeting with a funder, and they have like an hour and a half. They want to kill the funder in that meeting. They sit there and they lock the door, and they have their PowerPoint slides and their booklets, and it's spread out across the table, and their photo albums, and they have it all out there. And the poor donor sits there, hijacked, no movement. And they tell me, in the fundraising seminars I teach, they tell me, but it's my only shot, I must. Let me tell you this quickly. I've had more 10-minute meetings with donors than people have had 1-hour meetings with funders. Because at minute 9, I get up and walk out. I say, listen, my time is up. Thanks for the chat. It's great to be with you. I got to go. And they often say to me, Lorenzo, great, listen, let's reconnect again. If I call them in a month's time again and say, hey, can I come over for 10 minutes? They say, yeah, come over anytime. Because they trust me. It's 10 minutes. They're not going to be in a hostage situation. It's only 10 minutes. And we've raised millions of rands out of 10-minute meetings. Money is about relationships, and I can't emphasize that enough. With your donors, you got to have a relationship. And this is not golf and suppers and dinners and gifts. No, it's about a deep understanding. It's about the relationship you build that is respectful and profound. And I don't have time to expand on that. Sustainability is a myth. Let me just say that. I'm one of the people who said to the GSB that sustainability is a myth. I'd like you and you to work without your salary and say to me, you're sustainable. Sustainability is a myth. It's a myth coined by the industry to make you ask less and put less pressure on the industry. We will always need donor money. I'd like you to go to Pick n Pay, walk in the store, and just take off the shelf and put it in your trolley and say to Raymond, hey Ray, you should be sustainable by now. We will always need donor money, and listen, donor monies are there. Most of it in perpetuity, in trust funds that will always need to be spent. What we need is risk-facing intelligence and creative vulnerability. That's the new way. We need people who have a kind of risk-facing intelligence. They're smart. They know which risk to take. They've positioned themselves so that they understand the issues. And they have this creative vulnerability. They just have a way of pitching it that you go like, God, I got to fund that thing. Donor fatigue is a myth. There's no donor fatigue. Every year I had to distribute from one fund 15 million rand. Collectively I had to distribute 37 million rand. There was no fatigue there. What it was is we got tired of the kinds of requests we were getting. There was no intelligence in it. That's what the fatigue is about. It's an intellectual fatigue, not a fatigue of giving away money. What you're running into is that donors have become far more intelligent. Just imagine the head of CSI for the last 5 years reading all those proposals. You become a smart cookie at it. And eventually you get proposal number 5,054 and you go like, I've read this, it's a bunch of baloney. There's no fatigue there, there's intelligence. The donors that you engage with today are smart people. I say to most of the funders, don't give me more than 2 pages on a proposal. I'll know if it's smart or not. I'll know if I want to engage with 2 pages beyond this or not. If you send me 55 pages, no way. I'm not going to read it. I can tell you that now. So here's the big question we need to ask ourselves. Does the work you do move your organizational needle from passive consumers of donor funds to sector thought leaders and then to influences of donor funds? That's a very, very important question. You can stay in that bubble of keep on asking funders, or you can begin to engage funders where they come to you and say, listen, do you have anything we can fund? Listen, is there anything that you have picked up that we should be aware of? That's when you become thought leaders and you begin to shape the course of donor funds. I have some great examples of this. I don't have time to share the examples. But there's some interesting discussions where, I sit in as a practitioner in the NGO space. I was the head of an organization. But you begin to be invited into circles and meetings where you sit down and people say, listen, we'd like to listen to you. Can you talk to us about the issues in this country? And I haven't asked them for a cent. Fairly wealthy individual, very large company, also listed on the New York Stock Exchange and in South Africa. 2 brothers that built up a huge business. I used to go to them. They have offices in the Standard Bank building. And I do a donor visit to them twice a year. And I go for 10 minutes. I sit there and they say, 10 minutes? I say, yeah, absolutely, 10 minutes. I'm coming over. Not longer? You don't want? No lunch? No, nothing. No, I'm coming for 10 minutes. And I go over and I sit there and we have a 10-minute chat. And then they walk me to the lift, and they're quite short. And so the one guy has his arm on my shoulder as we walk to the lift. And we have this amazing conversation over 10 minutes. And within about the next few hours, I get a call. And say, Lorenzo, great chat. Great to meet with you. Our annual donation is about 500,000, but we'll make it 600,000 this year. 10 minutes. Because it's about relationships. Because we are beginning to be thought leaders, industry leaders. We are shaping the way donors think and move and what they decide to give to. That's what we all should be. That's not Nick or me or Gooks or anybody else. It's all of us. I want the whole sector to rise up like that. That a donor cannot go across the length and breadth of this earth without bumping into your intelligence, your smartness, your creativity, the power of what you do. We are done. So she comes. Number 15, look at it. Stop using the severity of need as the basis for funding. Use justice as the basis for your proposals. In 2025, justice will be the dominant filter for grant making with intelligent donors. And I'm going to stop right there. Post, publish, write, engage, speak. The leadership team that you have and that you lead must do these 5 things. And again, Steve Biko ends with, in time. When we do what we do the right way, intelligent, smart, creatively, with a deep sense of passion, we will bestow on South Africa the greatest possible gift, a more human face. Thank you very much.
Oh. Thank you very much, Lorenzo. I think it needs to go to level 5. Lorenzo, phenomenal insight that you've shared with us, and looking at the feedback that we do have on the platform, this has really hit home. You've given a lot of NPO leaders something very different to think about, challenged them in their delivery, and of course, hopefully we'll see some of the positive outcomes on this particular note.
Okay.
Thank you
Great.
so much
Thank
for your
you.
time. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause, please, for Lorenzo Davids. I know for the NPO leaders in the room, you're probably thinking, but why is he not getting more time? He has a flight to catch. So we do understand that due to time pressures, unfortunately, Okay, we'll skip it for now, purely because we've got the donors den. But we will make sure that there will be some time for further questions and engagement from Lorenzo. But he's given us some key questions to be mindful of, and the final questions that we need to address, right, in terms of what we're solving, how we're shifting the needle, and how it is that we're playing a critical role in the environments that we serve. But again, really appreciate the insights you've shared today, Lorenzo. We'll be sure to build up on some of the commentary that does come through.